Hi, I'm Arthur Moats, and I'm here to talk to you about the Moats theory of life and the amazing Father's Day sale that we have going on, ladies and gentlemen. So, leading up till Father's Day, if you purchase Moats Theory of Life, my new book, you can buy one and get the next one half off. I mean, this is a chance to help your father become a better person of impact and inspiration. You do not want to miss this opportunity. So with that being said, moatstheory.com is the place to go. You do not want to miss out, baby. What's up? It's the Arthur Moats Experience with Deke. I'm Arthur Moats, and that's my main man, Deke.
What's up, dude?
Man, I'm excited, man. It's a very, very fun podcast we got planned today. Also, just came off of a super dope interview with Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, Alabama Sports Hall of Fame Coach Sonny Smith. Man, he coached Charles Barkley at the University of Auburn. Yeah, man, just crazy. He's currently their men's color commentary for basketball. So it was a fun conversation. You're definitely going to enjoy it when you tune in and hear this at the end of this podcast. So, man, yeah.
I really enjoyed it, dude. I thought it was awesome. His stories were funny. His stories were good. He had, the typical, the wisdom, the insights, just that type of stuff. I really enjoyed it a lot.
And listen, for him to be 83, he's still sharp.
Yeah.
He's sharp. He's got it. He was giving us these talks. He was like, yo, this is nuts.
Yeah, we asked a question, just didn't miss a beat. Would give us a nice story. Would answer our question. It was awesome. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you're definitely gonna enjoy that. But today, man, we had some big time news, man. Across the sports front. So NASCAR. And shout out to NASCAR first off, man. They've been doing some very impressive things in terms of using their voice in this whole Black Lives Matter situation, using their voice in terms of standing up to social injustice, using their voice and supporting their racers as well, their athletes. Like I spoke on the last podcast, when they dedicated space before the race for them to play that video, and then for the guys to demonstrate how they would like to demonstrate. And then also Bubba Wallace, one of the only minority drivers that is currently in the Cup Series. He's going to be driving in a Black Lives Matter custom paint job car on Wednesday, which is extremely cool when you think about the NFL and how, for a while you couldn't write certain things on your on your cleats or wear certain things because they will fine you for that. So for NASCAR to allow him to do that and exercise his voice in that regard, I think that's really huge in their regard. But with NASCAR, man, the big thing that they just did, they have an announcement coming up where for 2 races, Alabama and in Florida for Daytona, I want to say, they're going to allow 1,000 fans for the race in Alabama and then 5,000 fans for the race in Daytona, which is huge. I hope I didn't flip-flop those, but that's huge in terms of being the first major sport that's going to allow fans back. Now, they are saying that they're going to test temperatures and different things along that nature, but the fact that they're allowing fans to come back in the stands, I think that's going to be huge in terms of seeing how other major sports operate from that. Also seeing what's the recourse after these fans are in there. Obviously, they're going to have to follow with them to see, okay, did anyone else get sick? How everything played out with that? But I think that's a huge step in the right direction, man.
Is NASCAR stock up right now?
Oh, absolutely, man. Is either stock up or they about to blow up in flames, one or the other.
Dude, it's just funny, man. Like all this, it's just so funny because all of a sudden, what was it, like a month ago? Yeah, you started getting NASCAR a little bit. Now all this stuff's popping with NASCAR, and they're just—it seems like they're playing chess, Right,
rightfully so, man. When I tell you they are receiving the attention they deserve, man, I'm extremely impressed because let's be real about it. When you're talking about NASCAR, we all know the stigma or the perception that goes along with that in terms of their fan base and in terms of the racers. But when you're watching how NASCAR is operated through this time right now and the way they're using their voice and effectively silencing that or going against it in some cases, man, I think that's very impressive. And it's not easy to do. It's not easy to stand up and speak for what's right. It's not easy to stand up and believe in something and say, you know what, I'm going to put it out there. That's not an easy thing to do. But the fact they're doing it, I think is very impressive. And the fact that they're going to be the first major sports that's going to have fans back in the stadium, I think that's huge as well, man. I'm excited for them, man.
Combination of all that, them starting their racing, whatever it was, probably a month ago, then them using their voice and now getting the fans back. It's just, I guess hats off to them. Wow.
Absolutely. Like I said, so hopefully this goes well. Like I said, it could blow up in their face. You never know. But I'm erring on the side of it's going to be great, and I'm excited about it,
I
man.
definitely do too, just because you know how we've talked about it last podcast, how I feel about this whole situation. So I feel like there's no risk. I feel like it's going to be good to go.
Absolutely, man. All right. So are you going to be mad? So are you going to be mad if they have to have masks on?
I'd be disappointed. I would be disappointed. I definitely would be. But hey, man, it's whatever. It's whatever. We discuss this to each their own. Everyone's got their own thing and how they want to operate in these times. So
if it gets you in the stadium, man, that's all that matters. Period. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. As the things progress, look for me to be at one of these races soon as well, man, because you know how I feel.
I was going to say, man, with the 1,000 fans, the 5,000 fans, you want to go down and cover one of these races?
No, man. So this is my only dilemma, right? So I want to say Daytona.
I bet you they're sold out too.
Oh, I ain't worried. You know,
no. What I mean is just from a business standpoint. It's
absolutely
having things being scarce. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants it now.
Absolutely, but this is my issue. I think the race is on the 21st. I have to see if that's Alabama or Daytona. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. My problem is this, okay? And I'm gonna let y'all indulge into my personal life. We got a big trip booked to Hawaii. It's a bucket list thing. I always wanted to go to Hawaii, so we got this thing planned out. Flights. Absolutely June. Coming up. It's coming up. Like dead serious. Like July 1st. Like we out of here coming up. But the problem is this. So Hawaii right now, they currently have a rule in place where if you're coming from the mainland to Hawaii, you have to quarantine for 14 days. That rule is in effect until June 30th. So my issue is, okay, I need to know ahead of time if we should cancel. So if I cancel now, though, technically from a getting the money back standpoint, it's going to be a little different just because they haven't ruled that rule goes into July. They have it as June 30th. Now, if they come up here next week and say, hey, man, we're going to make this quarantine 14 days mandatory up until July 1st. Well, now, I can say, cancel my trip, give me no money back. And then I go book that trip to go down there for the NASCAR thing. You know what I mean? But until I know what Hawaii's doing, I don't want to take that money out of there to put it over here just yet. So that's my whole dilemma right now.
Real? You'd go down to the NASCAR thing?
Oh, absolutely.
No way.
What? Come on, man. Stop playing with me. Wait, when have I ever been a bluffer?
The Hawaii thing, the 14-day quarantine. What do they mean by that? Once you
land there, you're not allowed to go to a grocery store. Okay. You're not allowed to go to a beach. You have to go to your place and just stay there for 14 days. If you want anything to eat, you have to order it from like a Grubhub or Uber Eats type thing.
Hawaii needs to get over themselves.
Well, no, this is the thing though. Out of everybody that's had their cases, Hawaii was the smallest amount, which is why they're like,
they want to protect.
Exactly. They're like, nah, you all you deeks out there that don't believe it, all you outsiders, all you deeks over there that y'all part of that just coughing on each other and all that stuff. Y'all stay in the mainland. Y'all not coming over here and messing up what we have. So that's the situation in Hawaii. They were literally. When all the quarantine started happening and stuff like that, they were one of the first ones like, yeah, you're not coming over here, period. They shut down, like they were trying to shut down travel to the island. And then they did shut down travel from the islands because, it's multiple islands in Hawaii where they were saying you can't go from island to island. They shut that down as well. Like they were legit about it. But when you look at the cases, they had a very, very scarce amount. So that's their whole approach. They're like, man, look, we know what y'all got over there. Y'all not bringing that over here. So until I know how they're feeling about that, because I'm not flying to Hawaii to go sit in a Uber. To go sit in a Airbnb or a hotel for 14 days. Like that's not happening. I'll cancel, get my money back first. But I need to know that it's going to last for July. Look, I said July 1. If they say July 1, cool, man. Give me my money back. I'm going to see you at one of these races. I'll be down there with a Kevin Harvick hat, a flannel with no shirt on. Yeah! Like, that's going to be me. All right? So, that's that.
Okay. Yeah, dude. Hopefully.
And it's June 21st. I got him with the Obey as Father's Day. That's what Daddy wants for Father's Day. And then the 22nd, my anniversary. Oh, babe, since we already down here, let's celebrate. Oh, see, I got this, baby. I'm ready. This is strategic.
Wow, dude. Yeah, that would work out then.
It would, bro. Dude. It would. But like I said, man, it depends what Hawaii's doing. So Hawaii put a little update out there yesterday saying that they're contemplating lifting the ban and all that. Then they also said, and this was driving me nuts too. I'm going on a rant right now. They're like, they want the airlines to test every person that flies into Hawaii for COVID-19, or they need to check their temperatures, and the airlines have to be the ones supplying the tests and the thermometers to check the temperatures. I'm like, bro, y'all doing too much. Y'all doing way too much.
Now you're on my side.
No, I'm not on your side.
They got to get over themselves.
No. I'm just simply saying this. If I'm going, like, and I understand what Hawaii is saying, because if you want to protect what you're doing, absolutely. You're speaking from a situation where you haven't had anybody experience the COVID-19. No. It's different if you had somebody that experienced or you saw firsthand and you're like, oh, I know for a fact y'all have had it over here and they trying to come to your house. Would you let somebody from New York City come to your house right now? Probably not. So for them, that's their approach, okay? That's their approach. So it's like, I understand that. But for me, first off, watching how people get tested. Have you seen the test? Dude, they stick that thing up your nose and down your throat. Holy cow, it's really brutal. Really
uncomfortable.
Yeah, you're not doing that to me. You're not doing that to me. And not my kids either. It's not happening. So for me, that's the issue. I'm not about to go down that route. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind you test people. That's fine. But for me, I would much rather just keep my money, stay where I'm at, than go that route, personally.
True. Yeah.
So that's that whole situation. You got
your checks and balances. How do you... What's more important to you with this decision?
That's that whole thing with that, man. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Keep us updated. Yeah,
I will, man.
I'm actually interested in this
saga. Will, man. Because, when I saw they were putting fans back in, I've already told wifey once I started watching NASCAR, I said, babe, we're going to go to a race, right?
I told you, I don't know if I said it on the mic or not, but my dad used to go here and there, like back in the day. He said it was like the funnest live thing that he's been at. Yeah. Like the party experience is awesome. Those RVs in the middle of the track.
Yes. So literally my father-in-law, who was the one who got me into watching it, him and my wife, they used to go when she was growing up. They lived right in Tennessee outside of Bristol, and they would go to the track all the time. So for me, I'm like, it's going to happen. I'm going to go to one of these races, period.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, okay, which one of y'all let me into, baby? Because I'm there. I don't want to hear it sold out. I'm going to make some phone calls. Either it's not often that I feel like I got to exercise my you know what I mean?
I'm Arthur Mass.
Yeah. It's not often I got to exercise the, hey, yo, call this person to get that taken care of. But for NASCAR, it will happen. That's all I'm saying. Okay, it will happen.
We're excited. Dude.
So that's that. So I'm gonna keep you posted, man. And we're gonna find out what's up with Hawaii, because Hawaii's been like a bucket list name for me. Like, I always wanted to go to Hawaii, bro.
Yeah, never. Yeah, you want to make it a good experience, though. You don't want to force the issue.
Yeah, going there and just sitting in a house, like I could do that here in Pittsburgh. Yeah, that's not cool, bro. Yeah.
Well, we got that taken care of. We got some more news.
Yeah, man. So
what did you want to start off
with?
Man,
so we'll go with the NFL. Obviously, the first part of it is the Players Coalition, which I am a part of. Shout out to that. Recently signed a petition where we sent a letter to Congress, and we're basically supporting it's called the Amish-Presley bill, which would effectively end what they call qualified immunity. And qualified immunity, for those that don't know, it is for police officers or government officials, and it protects them in the sense of if they do anything egregious, they don't really have anything to be anyone to hold them accountable. So if you wrongfully died due to some police officer's actions, and I'm your family and I want to sue them and make them be held accountable for that, the only way I can win is if I can prove that he broke an established right of yours in the sense of, well, hey, this has happened before by this officer, or another officer has done something like this and was convicted of it, which is extremely difficult to do. So when you talk about the qualified immunity, getting rid of that will now make it where, hey, I don't have to prove that this has happened before in the past, regardless if it was him or for somebody else. I can just simply get you for the action that you committed, and I can ultimately hold you accountable for that, which is huge, because you've seen numerous times why different officers have gotten off when they've done egregious actions, where they've done things that have led to wrongful deaths or people being hurt in an extreme way. This gets rid of that. This makes it where now we can get you on that act right there, and we can charge you, and we can ultimately sue you in those actions as well. So, I mean, it's a huge, huge step. And when you look at some of the names that are on it, I mean, it's over 1,400 athletes that signed it. And the list ranges, like I said, I'm a part of it. I signed it. Drew Brees, Tom Brady. But then it goes to different sports as well. You look at Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr. I mean, anyone that goes on NFL.com, it's the first article up there. You could click on it and see the full list of names from different executives, coaches, current players, former players across all the major sports. And the thought process behind it being with all the different athletes from all the different sports and all the different parts of it is to silence that narrative of sticking to sports. That's the big thing that we would hear when we first created the Players Coalition. I think we did it in 2017. I want to say this is right when Kaepernick the kneeling and all that stuff was going on, we had created the Players Coalition. And literally, that's the purpose of it. Us coming together, using our power, using our voice to implement change, to have an impact, which I think is huge, man. And when you're looking at what this thing, like I said, what it's trying to do, it's not even a minority thing. This is a everyone thing, man. And it protects everyone from some of the bad police, because we know not all police are bad. We can agree upon that. And we all hear the saying, the whole, one bad apple doesn't ruin the whole bunch. But we want to weed out the bad apples. We want to figure out, how do we do that? We always say, well, you get rid of the bad ones, keep the good ones. How do you do that? This is how you do that.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it a little bit off the mic, just because you sent me this article, and I read the article, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of, I don't want to say confused, because I was able to read it and understand it completely. I guess from my standpoint, I didn't know how much impact it had.
Yeah.
And just from talking to you, it seemed like it is. We talk about, everyone's talking and saying things about, hey, we're trying to move in the right direction. But this seems like an actionable thing. And then when you break it down and say, this is kind of how just a regular citizen is being tried, or, just held accountable for their actions, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
It just makes common sense. Why isn't it that the way for everyone? Not where government officials or anyone that's working for the government is, I guess, held aside from that, where
they have a separate standard. Yeah. Like you said, man, if you go out and you do something where a person is harmed, a person dies from it, excuse me, they're not going to say, hey, well, has anyone else done something similar? Oh, okay. Well, now we can get him. Or has Deke done something similar in the past? Now we can get him for that. No. They're going to look at that action you did, and you're going to be held accountable for that action, period. Not anyone else. We can't say, oh, well, because there isn't a pattern or no one else has done this before, well, now we can't do anything about it. No. So we feel like when it comes to police officers, they need to be held to that same standard. They need to be held accountable in that regard. And it doesn't affect the good officers. If you're a good officer, you're fine. The same way the laws that are there now for me and you as regular citizens, they don't affect us because we're not breaking those laws. It's that simple. But as a people, I don't see why it would be an issue with wanting to get rid of the bad police, the police who cross that line, the police who aren't treating people the way they should be. And like I said, this isn't just solely based on minorities, because you can go down the list of non-minorities that have dealt with the same type of transgressions, the same type of situations. This is the thing that we need to fix just in general. So for me, man, I'm glad that this is something that's going to be pushed to Congress and ultimately, man, taken to the Supreme Court, and hopefully we can get this thing done.
And they do have it where a critique or I guess a sentiment could be, man, what if it goes too far the other way, where you're just seeing lawsuits and people bringing up stuff out of nowhere? You were talking whenever we were wrapping off the mic here that they do have some things in place where it's almost common sense on both sides, where it's like, this isn't gonna be taken too far to the extremes here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So what you're talking about is in terms of, man, the floodgates are going to be open, right? Everybody's going to be committing wrongful suits against the police department or different police officers, and that's not the case. With the act itself proposes is that, hey, if there isn't any evidence to back the claim, the judges can throw it out. They don't even have to see it. But at the same time, if you're coming in here and you're wasting everybody's time and money trying to come up with something that wasn't even egregious and try to sue, well, then, yeah, you'll be held responsible. And then ultimately you'll be paying the lawyer fees for that whole situation. So I think that that's important to hold both sides accountable. So that way somebody's not trying to take advantage of this situation as well. And when you're talking about the police officer themselves, they're not even from a financial standpoint going to be held responsible in terms of having to provide their own counsel to represent them, because as police officers, anytime a police officer has to go to court for anything, the state pays for it in that regard. So I don't really see the issue in that sense. I think this is going to be a good thing going forward if everything gets passed the way it should be passed. But this is a huge step in. Just to make things clear too, this is on a federal level, and this is for the Players Coalition. This is the one-off where we're like, let's focus on this right now at this level. But the rest of the things that we have coming up in the future, we'll focus on the local and state level, because when you look at the amount of people being arrested, the impact, it's mainly at that local and state level. I mean, unless you are doing some high-scale major crimes, you're hardly ever at the federal level. You're going to be state and local. So that's what we're focusing on. The next, where the majority of our focus will continue to be on is educating the police departments, educating the citizens as well in terms of that communication back and forth, how to go about these different situations, the policing policies, the different things that are being taught. That's going to be something else that we're going to be looking into, man. So this, like I said, the first step in a long journey, but I think it's a huge step, and it's great to see the amount of people supporting it from across the different sports, man, and from different backgrounds too. When you look at the list, as you said, man, you look at the list, it's people, I mean, current guys, retired guys from all over there. You're just like, dude, this is crazy, but that's why everybody can get along with it, because it's not making it a black versus white thing. It's making it bad police officers need to get out thing. And I think that's huge.
No, yeah, I'm glad that you brought it to my attention, because like I said at the beginning, I would have had no clue about this at all, and, what it meant and what type of impact it was having. So I'm glad we talked about it. You broke it down for me. It's definitely an interesting topic, and I'm glad action is being taken, and we're all trying to move in the right direction. Like you said, it's not really a race thing. It's just, all right, how can we do some action? How can we make this society, America, a better place? So
absolutely, man. And like you said, that's from the Players Coalition side of it. But the NFL, they're also taking action. We saw when Roger Goodell made a statement. And for a lot of us that were around when the whole Kaepernick situation was happening, we weren't necessarily fond of, Goodell's statement, just because it came off as kind of a little bit too late or not enough, just because we remember how some of those meetings went and some of the conversations that were being had during that time. But what the NFL is doing, they just created the NFL social justice funding and grant opportunities. And essentially what they're going to be doing for current and former players, from the NFL standpoint, they'll match up to $5,000 of any donation you make to any of the 501c3s that are focusing on social justice, whether it's education, criminal justice reform, community and police relations, poverty, racial equality, and workforce and economic development. So they'll match up to $5,000 for any current or former player making donations to organizations in that department. But then to take it a step further, each club will match up to $250,000 in donations as well for any of their current or former players. So when you're talking about the amount of players that have played in the NFL, the amount of players, both, like I said, current and retired, that's big time money that we're talking about when you're looking at the amount of guys that could hop into this and really start to get more involved, which we definitely hope. So for me, man, I was definitely proud to see the NFL taking action in that regard, because we're past the point of talking. It's more so now, what are you going to do to implement that impact, to implement that impact and to implement change? And these are some of the things that are being taken place.
Yeah, that's dope, man.
Yeah, man. So I like that, bro.
Dude, real quick.
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
Just football.
All right. Here we go.
Kaepernick.
Okay.
Could he start in the league right now?
I mean, people are calling for that.
I'm saying he could start.
I think Malcolm Jenkins. Yeah, I think Malcolm Jenkins was asking for it. For me, this is my biggest issue with this. Understanding you take 1 year away from the game is tough. I think right now he's at 3 years away from the game. Now I understand he's still been working out, and we know what his ability was when he was playing. My thought process is I would hate for him to come back and it doesn't go how we think it should go or how we think it could go. And then people try to use that as justification for, oh, well, see, they weren't blackballing him. He just wasn't good enough. And I feel like, and we can agree, we know that would come up, because it's very realistic that the game is not going to look the same. I mean, you take 3 years, you see how guys look after taking 6 weeks away. We're worried about Ben coming back because after just one season. So imagine sitting out 3 seasons. That's my only concern with that.
Understood. I just think he's better than probably, 4 or 5 of these bottom tier QBs right now.
Well, I definitely think he could make a roster without a doubt. I mean, when you look at the amount of quarterbacks, roster, whether it's backers or starters, like, he definitely should belong. But my biggest concern is after 3 years, what does that look like?
Yeah, and to your point of people saying, he was.
Oh, they would definitely justify. He was
never that good anyway.
They would definitely justify.
Dude, that's just ridiculous. I talked about common sense when we were talking about the whole coalition thing. That's just people not using common sense. Because no matter what, like, if he does play, unfortunately bad, then that's just because he's been away from the game for so long. Like, it's not. You're just proving what you want to see, or you know what I mean. Like, so that doesn't even make sense to me.
Absolutely,
but,
man.
dude, I would take him. Like, I would take him over Minshew.
But then this is my thought process too. From an organization standpoint, that's playing with fire if you do bring him in. Because say you bring him in and he's absolutely stinking it up. He's playing just terrible. If you release him,
oh yeah.
Just think about the backlash and how you restart everything back again, man. So it's really a lightning rod when you're talking about Colin Kaepernick and if he should come back and play, if a team should sign him and everything that's associated with it. For me personally, I would love to see it just because I'm a supporter of him in the movement and the things that he went through to get this conversation to where it is today. If he doesn't do what he does back then, we're not here where we are today having these conversations from a global standpoint. So that's huge. So like I said, I'm a supporter in that regard. But when I think outside of the political spectrum, outside of the social injustice spectrum, outside of the protesting spectrum, just him, the player, after a 3-year layoff, that's tough. That's all I'm saying. That's tough.
Dude, there was a couple of good points brought up today, though. I was listening to the herd. The new NFL, a little bit more for open college system, running quarterbacks, so that could play into his favor.
Yeah.
And then think some of these backup QBs. I mean, this is a given. He should be in the league.
Well, that's the thing.
Over backup QBs.
If we're talking backup, 1,000%. But I think we're talking starter.
I still think he could start. Like in the back of my mind, it's one of those things where I'm about the name, I'm about the talent.
I'm about the name.
He took 49ers to the Super Bowl. I just think he's better than even some of these rookies coming in, like right off the bat this season. Now it all depends on where you are as an organization. It's like, what direction are we going in? Are we trying to start the young guy grooming for the future? There's that, but I'm just saying if you take this season coming up, I think he could at least top 25. I think he's better than probably 5, 6, 7 guys coming back right now. But you bring up the point of 3 years. I like to just push that aside. You know how I am. and I'm going based off what I saw 3-4 years ago. Because even his last year wasn't even that bad. Dude. No, it was actually pretty decent.
No, when you look at the numbers, I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio, everything
was so bad.
Yeah, everything from a statistical standpoint, his last year, like you can't make the argument. But people will say, well, he lost his job to Blaine Gabbert, and that wasn't the case. The 49ers, for the people that really researched it, the 49ers, they didn't he had an injury clause. So he was saying, hey, if I get hurt, you're going to pay me X amount. They wanted him to take that out. He wasn't going to do it. So they said, okay, instead of us putting you out here where you could get hurt and get paid, I think it was $25 million at the time, he would have got guaranteed. They said, we'll just put Blaine Gabbert in. And that team
was so bad. That's
they were terrible. Yeah.
So he might have lost his job the year before, a little, like at the end of the season. I can't completely remember, but then you're right. Something happened with Gabbert. Then he came in and finished off the season.
He didn't lose his job the year before. He was hurt the year before.
Is that what happened?
Yes, he was hurt the year before.
I remember seeing another quarterback.
And that whole offseason, he was injured rehabbing.
Okay.
And that was the biggest reason why they were like, well, we all knew the contract. Well, hey, if he goes out here and he's not healthy and he gets hurt, he's going to get this amount guaranteed. They bring in Gabbert and they're like, oh, well, shoot, we're just going to put Gabbert out there then. And that was that whole thing. But then I think he ended up taking the clause out somewhere during the season, and that's when they gave him the opportunity to play. And then his numbers looked good. He was fine.
It was. This is just off the top of my head. I think it was like 16 touchdowns, 4 picks.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Yes.
He looked good, man. And then that's when that offseason is when he wasn't back in the league.
Correct.
But there was but some people was bringing up some points. I remember at that point where, Kaepernick's better than Flacco. He's better than at the time.
There was probably numbers were there.
10,
Absolutely.
15 quarterbacks in the league. And it was just... There was the whole narrative that, no, he's not good enough. But then if you look at the numbers and how bad that 49ers team was, he played pretty good.
And then remember, the first game back, I think it was against the Dolphins. And he actually I think they won because of the things that he was doing on the field. He was balling out. But then it was another narrative that I wanted to crush as well, where they were, because that was the first one. They're like, well, Blaine Gabbert took his spot. That did not happen. And that's been very well documented. The next thing was, it wasn't that they were blackballing him. He had a contract offer from the Broncos. He turned it down. That was not the case either. From when he started kneeling, he never had another contract offer. They offered him, the Broncos did the year before, to trade. You would trade him and then change his contract, take a pay cut. He said, "Why would I?"
It would have been a long-term deal though.
They didn't say the years on it, but they said they wanted him. They were going to trade for him and take a pay cut. And for him, he's like, dude, I got an injury guarantee that's going to pay me this. I'm going to make this much money regardless if I play or not. in terms of like starting or not for the Niners. And then it's like, under the normal assumption, if I leave to go get free agency, I'm going to get more money than this anyways. So it made perfect sense for him to say, no, I'm not going to take that. And that was, like I said before, that was going into the season when he was still injured and they were going to trade for him. So for the people that say, well, hey, man.
His last year playing.
No. This would have been the year before that.
Yeah, before his last year playing.
Yes, correct. But people, the ones who, like you said, the common sense part.
Because there wasn't anything after that last year.
Correct. But for the people that try to paint this narrative of, oh, no, that wasn't the case. They weren't blackballing him. He got off from Denver. The timeline. No, that was not the case. Happened before that season, not after that season. So there's that as well.
Yeah, and maybe they used as an excuse maybe the year deal where it might have been a 2 or 3, but we don't know that. We don't know that at all. And like you said, why take the pay cut when there was all this other stuff behind the scenes that was common sense?
He was going to be fine from a contract standpoint. Yeah.
So you can't blame him for that.
And then since then, literally, the Seahawks were the only team that were going to bring him in for a workout, which they canceled the day before. So then he didn't get that workout. And then obviously we know about the NFL organizing that workout / hey, no cameras, we control the narrative workout that he said, nah, I'm not going to do that, and did it on his own way. So,
dude, but here's the thing. I know he should be a backup just at the end of the day, and I know a lot of starters, a lot of quarterbacks are talking about, like, Kaepernick should be in the league. I wonder if in the back of their mind they're thinking, like, just not on my team. Like, dude, seriously, like Russell Wilson, or if you're like the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, some of these QBs, if he's the backup, I could see it being like a Mike Vick situation where
it's gonna be huge, man.
If someone got hurt, Kaepernick came in, a few months into the system, understood he could take your job.
You definitely have to run that risk, man. I guess it's just so many different ways this thing could go. I mean, it's going to be unique to see how it plays out, because you are seeing some players start to say that, hey, man, the NFL, not only do you need to apologize to Kaepernick directly, but you need to give him a job in terms of giving him opportunity to sign with the team. So it's going to be interesting to see, man, how that whole thing plays out, man. I'm rooting for him regardless if he plays, if he gets a job, or if he goes on to do even more impactful things. Either way, I'm going to be a fan.
Yeah, I would like to see it too. I know we were bringing it up at some points last year with the Steelers, bringing them in or not, and I would have liked that, but there were some points where you were just like, all right, we stick with Mason, but then other points.
Well, the Steelers also have made it very clear that they are completely fine with their quarterback situation. You even said it as well. Don't hit me with this. Oh, they should have brought him in. No, I don't want to hear none of that.
Last year, I was saying it. I was saying it at some point. Last year, yes, I was.
And how's that quarterback roster changed in any way, shape, or form? Because Ben was still on the roster last year, so how does that roster change in any way, shape, or form?
It would have made sense for a 1-year deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I said, I don't want to hear none of that, man.
I was saying
I don't want to hear none of that. Where's the roster changed? Where's the roster changed all of a sudden now that it would have been fine last year?
That's what I'm talking about last year.
What would have been the difference?
Huh?
What would have been the difference?
What do you mean?
I'm just asking, what would have been the difference?
Big Ben's back now, so we're good.
Oh, whatever,
we're straight. We could have used it last year, definitely down the stretch.
Okay.
Come on, dude. Just look at your eyes. Kaepernick could have.
These are the same quarterbacks on the roster this year, are they not?
I understand.
So now they're fine.
Now we got Ben though. We're new season. It's just time to roll, man.
So last year, Mason and Duck. Oh no, man, we need somebody else. But now Mason and Duck are still on the roster. Oh, they're fine. We're good to go. We got Ben. Am I missing something here?
We got Ben. That's it.
You still have the same 2 quarterbacks on the roster though, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We're good to go, man. Okay. I told you with this having Cam and I just don't want any controversy. Dude.
You don't want any controversy, but you said they should have signed Kaepernick last year.
Yeah, last year, yes.
Interesting.
Last year was the time. Last year was the time.
Interesting, bro.
Dude, it is. I'm just telling you how it is.
Cool.
At this point, dude, I'm a Ben guy, dude. So I'm just deferring all to Ben.
I'm just simply saying the same quarterbacks are on the roster a year later, so now they're fine.
Technically, no. I've talked about it. This is a whole conundrum, dude. It is. It's just a whole conundrum.
Listen, technically, no. I'm not about to say they're fine. I'm not going there just yet. But
because, dude, I said Jameis and Cam. They're clearly better, and they would make a much better backup. So would Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. It's just that I just think we got a good thing going. Ben's coming back. It's just I just don't want any controversy, dude. That's all.
Cool.
That's all.
Cool.
From all standpoints, dude.
Cool.
That's all.
Cool. All right. I
But
just agreeing with you, man. All right, cool.
You don't have to. It's fine.
It's all good, man. I ain't tripping, man. We've had this conversation too many times. I'm not going there.
It makes sense. I mean, it would
to you, it does. Yes. Yeah, I'm sure in the perfect world, it all makes sense, man. I'm with you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, that's that, man.
But see, that was a good pickup by you. I like that, man. The Kaepernick question, that was solid.
You think
that was solid? He
should. I think he should be starting. Yeah. I definitely think I would like to see him come back too. So I think it would be interesting. I think it'd be good for him. Hopefully, if he wants to. I don't know what he's.
Well, I mean, he's been saying that he wants to as well, and he said, I mean, I think he put out a report last week that he still wants to play. He's still training. Was it 5 days a week and all that stuff? I mean. You see the videos when he posts a workout video or him throwing. It's like he looks the part still. So we'll see,
I'm wondering. See, I'm thinking about this more and more with Kaepernick. Though I wonder if it would be like the Mike Vick situation, where I don't know. Cam would be different than Jameis and Kaepernick. I think if we brought in Cam.
What do you mean?
Like maybe because you explained with Jameis, where I think everyone, and especially in the locker room, would know the rules of like Ben's the guy. Like nothing's that. I'm starting to think though, maybe with Kaepernick that would be the case, right?
I don't see why it wouldn't be the case. Why, like, out of any of those guys, why would it be different?
Because I'm thinking controversy. The only controversy would be all the stuff off the field, which I don't care. Like, I don't care about people talking about all that type of controversy. I'm more concerned about like the quarterback controversy. People complaining about that. And if you're telling me that wouldn't be the case if Kaepernick came in. Actually, I mean, I don't know, man.
Hey, but either way, that ship has sailed because the Steelers have said on numerous occasions they are completely satisfied and happy with their coaching. I mean, with their quarterback room, and they don't want to make any adjustments to that. So it is what it is. We're leaving it at that, man.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
that's what they said. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just relaying the message. That's what they said.
We're rolling with Ben, dude. So
they said that
they're good either way.
They said Ben, Mason, Duck, Paxton Lynch, and JT Barrett they are completely fine with. That's their quarterback room, so it is what it is.
Okay.
Cool. I'm with it, man. But
hey. What's so funny, dude?
Nothing, man. Nothing. Are you good, bro?
Well, I don't know. It's so funny, dude.
Oh, man. Nothing's funny at all.
You can tell me.
No, it's all good, man. It's all I didn't want to go there. I want what I want to talk about. I want to talk about something else the NFL said today.
Okay.
That's what I want to talk about.
Am I missing something? You gotta tell me,
bro.
man.
It's nothing. Are you good, man? I want to say we're on the same team here.
All right.
We're on the same team, man.
Just tell me if I'm missing something.
Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. We're on the same team, man. All right.
Okay.
We're good. But the NFL today, they've said that there are negotiations going on between the NFL and NFLPA about potentially shortening the preseason this season in hopes of adding the player safety element because this offseason, obviously, OTAs haven't been able to take place like they normally would. And this under the same assumption that the season will start on time. So the thought process behind it is you cut out 2 preseason games so that way you'll have a longer period of time to prepare for the games to start being played versus traditionally you come into training camp that last week of July and you'll have a preseason game going into the first or second week of August. Like I think around the 6th or the 7th, typically when you have another game already. And without the full OTAs, I mean, that's asking a lot for guys to go from 0 to 2 weeks to game. So the thought process is take away 2 games. And they're talking about also having training camp start earlier in July as well, like the second week of July. So now you're looking at the guys having almost a month to 2 months a month and a half to prepare for the preseason games that they'll have at the end. And then you essentially hop into the season. And most teams will probably operate with those first 2 games still not under the intensity of a regular season game type concept, man. So, I mean, for me, I thought it was a good idea. I definitely like the mindset with it, even though it is funny because the NFL, when they're talking about this, it comes off as they wanted to start on time. But they've also said, I think it was a week or 2 ago, they said that they're open to pushing the season back so that way fans could be in there, and they were completely open to that. So if you're considering pushing it back, I don't really see why it would be necessary to make those type of moves from a preseason standpoint. But if you're, just bent on it starting on time, I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, dude. Whatever works for me. Get the football back. Yeah. That is exactly what I'm good with. So what's interesting is they were talking about did you see this report? The Hall of Fame, like the induction and everything, the Hall of Fame game. they're saying they plan on that going through, and then they plan on having fans as well. So,
but they also said, because I like how this the headline grab. They also said they have 5 plans in place in terms of how they can maneuver through this thing as everything progresses. Whether they keep it on with fans, they do it without fans, they move it to another year, or they move it back. They said they have multiple plans in place. Don't just give me the headline. Look at the headline.
That's all I read. That's all I read, and I got excited, and I was thinking, man, we got 3 Steelers going in the Hall of Fame. We're playing in the Hall of Fame game, so, and I'm thinking we're going to be up there. So,
well, now I wonder too, because the Hall of Fame and the NFL, they operate separately in a sense. How does that work then? If you're saying that, hey, we're going to do the Hall of Fame with fans, but then the NFL is like, hey, we're pushing back. We're not going to have all our preseason games. Because obviously the Steelers were supposed to play in that preseason game. How does that whole dynamic work? Or do they not have a game at all? And they just do the ceremony. So it's going to be interesting to see, man. It's going to be real interesting to see.
What do you think when they start? You saying fans or no fans?
I think whenever they do start, because it's going to be August, September timeframe, they'll have fans. I think probably half capacity. As of today, my thought process, just because NASCAR is already bringing back 1,000 and then 5,000. I think once we see how that plays out, and what comes from that over the next month, then that'll give me a better idea about the NFL. But I definitely think as of right now, they will at least be at a half capacity, because following the social distance guidelines and stuff like that, when you think about a stadium holding 70,000, if you cut it in half, then you should be able to have everybody properly spaced out in the stands. Now, obviously, when they're going to the bathrooms or concession stands, is going to be different. But in terms of being in the stands, I do think they'll be able to implement that.
Hoping it happens, dude. Yeah. I'm hoping it happens.
But shoot, you worried about that. I'm trying to figure out how they're going to hold this training camp. I mean, at Heinz Field, they're talking about you still got to have the social distance in the locker room. Yeah. I mean, you talk about 90 guys. That's another reason why they can't even do the training camp at the South Side, because the locker room's not big enough for you to have man, just think about this. Hey, we got 90 guys in a locker room that's probably built for 65, maybe 70 guys. What are they going to do?
Offense, defense, home and away locker rooms, maybe?
More than likely something like that. But the thing is, this is still 90 people. So they wanted every other locker. You catch my drift?
Man.
That's the difficult part. And then from a scheduling standpoint, do you have, you get dressed in waves, or like you said, these guys going here at this time, that guy at that time? Especially during the all-season roster. It's very complicated, man. So
it's just getting ridiculous, dude.
Hey, man. Like you said, go to New York City and say that too, man. All right.
That's the thing. We are in a different state, though.
You're speaking from COVID privilege. That's what you're doing right now, man. If you were in New York where you were directly affected, if you were in California, you're directly affected, if you were in China where you're directly affected, singing a different tune. But right now, you're very much privileged in the comforts of Pennsylvania, and especially the western part of Pennsylvania, not Philly either, the western part. So your perspective is a little different. That's it.
It's not wrong. It's not completely wrong. So I won't debate you there.
I'm not even about to go into because this could go so bad.
What do you mean?
No. I'll tell you later.
All right. That works. Is that all we got then for this episode?
Man.
Sonny Smith interview coming up.
Sonny Smith, man, like we talked about earlier, man, that's gonna be a dope interview, a lot of fun. Like you said, man, hit on these major topics. Also, man, shout out to the Pens too. They just had their first practice today as well, really? Man. Yeah, Sid the Kid looks nice on the ice. He was flying around super smooth. They're skating in 2 groups right now. So he was with the first group. You got Evgeny Malkin with the second group. Man, Jake Gensel was out there. So I'm excited about those guys getting back, because their season's about to start up with the 20. Was it the 22 game? I think we said 22 game. I'm mixing them in the NBA up, but they're going to have their tournament playoff series type thing starting up in a little while. So I'm excited, man. It's gonna be a good time, baby. Good time.
Yeah, good for them, dude. Well, here's the sports coming back. I guess we hope everyone enjoyed listening. Am I missing anything? Is there anything else?
I think that was it, man. Say it with confidence though, Deke, man. Don't give him that little soft talk, Deke. You speak with your chest, Deke. Say it with your chest, Deke.
I appreciate everyone for listening. And until next time.
Peace. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this next guest, I mean, his track record is impeccable. He recently was inducted into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. He was the former coach of the Auburn Tigers, where he led them to their first NCAA tournament appearance, along with appearances in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. He coached NBA Hall of Famer Charles Barkley, and he is currently Auburn's men's basketball color commentary. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sonny Smith. Sonny, how are you doing today, baby?
I'm doing great. How are you guys today?
Man, we're doing well. Excited to have you on, man. You know, legendary guy, man.
Well, I had some great players. You got to, as both you guys know, you got to have players to win games. You got to be a player to win games. It takes two.
Absolutely.
And I was fortunate enough a number of times to have those kind of players, and it's been a pleasure. Coaching was a great career for me, as it has been for so many players.
I like that, man. So talk to me, man. First off, congrats on being inducted into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. That's a huge honor. So just talk about what that means to you.
Well, I tell you, it means more. I'm in the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and that means a great deal. But to be in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, because I'm from a small town, probably one of the smallest towns in Tennessee, right on the North Carolina border, and very few people from that county has ever got recognition anywhere out of the county or state. And for the people in Roan Mountain to recognize that, and my brother who lives there now, all of them to see that type of thing happen in their state and in our county there, it made me really proud. It might sound crazy to say that, but I always wanted Roan Mountain to be known, and Roan Mountain's about the size of my thumb.
Now, I was reading, you mentioned growing up in Roan Mountain, very small town. You didn't have a lot growing up, but, you know, your parents made ends meet. Your quote that I read was that you always wanted to be somebody when you grew up. Where did that come from? Did you find inspiration looking up to someone? Was there some type of moment in time as you were growing up in Roan Mountain where you were like, I want to be somebody?
The radio. Listening to sports on the radio.
Really?
It made me think, this is what I want to be involved in. This is what I wanted to do. And then a gentleman that had been in the service, like it's been so long ago, I can't remember, he would gather us together and he would talk about, let's put a team together here and go play people and give some of you a chance maybe to get a scholarship or to go to college. And we didn't have a lot of people going to college back in that. We didn't have a lot of people, much less a lot going to college. So that kind of got me on the side of sports side of life. You know, I was interested in getting there anyway, speaking, singing, acting, anything. But I tried to do all of those things, and it finally worked out late in life.
I like it, Sonny the singer.
Yeah. Hey, I got the. Well, if you're I know you guys are familiar with the show called the Grand Ole Opry. It's famous all over the world. Well, it's in Nashville, Tennessee. Jerry Clower, the great comedian, one time brought Wimp Sanderson and I, the coach at Alabama, out on the stage to introduce us to the crowd. He looked at me and he said, Coach Smith, I hear you're a singer. A country singer. He said, well, Wimp Sanderson, he's country, but he ain't no singer. So he said, tonight you are. So he handed me the microphone and said, sing something. Well, I'm thinking there, I don't want to do this, but it's a Tennessee, it's in Nashville, Tennessee crowd. I said, well, I'll sing Rocky Top, which is the Tennessee State song. And by the way, it's recorded by two friends of mine. So I said, I'll try Rocky Top. Well, the guy that was the conductor, the band director for the Opry, come to me and said, Coach, what key did I play this in? I said, key? I don't know one key from another, man. Just play it. He played it, and it was so high, I guarantee an opera singer couldn't have reached it. So I quit right in the middle of it. But the crowd cheered for me, but I had this on my resume. I sung at the Grand Ole Opry. It was the worst performance. It's the worst performance ever, though. I tell you that, guys.
Hey, it doesn't matter how good or how bad it was. You did it. It's an accomplishment. I like it.
Yeah, I put it on my resume. You can bet on that.
So I was reading something else online. I don't know if this is completely true. You could let me know. That whenever you were growing up in high school, you were playing sports and everything, that you had like a really severe illness. I think later in your high school career, like you almost passed away from. Was that true? Like what was going on there?
Oh, yes. Yes, all through my career as a high school student, I was sick with various type of illnesses, and one thing that I've mentioned it many times, and it sounds crazy to say something like this, maybe on any show, but they'd called in. I had one of those various illnesses that I had. It had been diagnosed as Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which you know how far we were from the Rocky Mountain. Well, anyway, they couldn't find a cure for it, so they'd called in all the family and to be there because they thought I was going to pass away on this day. Now, I wish I could tell you the age that I was. It might have been 14, 15, right in there. And they all gathered and this minister, I was going to be a minister out of high school if I didn't make it as a sports guy. This minister that I idolized, the guy, I used to get behind him and try to walk like he did. So he come in and prayed. About 2 or 3 hours after that, I started to get better, and I totally got better. And it sounds like a weird, crazy story, but it's the only thing that only way I can tell that story. But it's kind of the way that it happened. Yes,
that's wild. Look at you now, still here all these years later.
Yeah, 83 and hanging in there. I feel 83 too. Until I got on the show with you guys, now I'm feeling younger.
That's awesome.
I would say you sound vibrant, man, to be 83. So I hope I sound as good as you do when I get to that age.
You sound great.
Now, take us through that 1983-1984 season, man, when you led Auburn to its first NCAA tournament appearance. What was it about that team that helped you break through there?
Well, I made a decision when I took this. I was coach at East Tennessee State, and when I got the Auburn job, I left a team that was better than the one we had at Auburn. We had just won the Ohio Valley Conference Championship at East Tennessee State, and I was thinking to myself as I looked around the SEC, which is everybody's a fan of SEC that live in the state of Tennessee and Alabama, of course, and I saw that teams that really, at that time now, not now, today, teams that won big are people that controlled their state in recruiting or their surrounding recruiting area. And I made a commitment when I took the job at Auburn that I was going to try to get into the state of Alabama and recruit. So, and win the recruiting battle. And so we won with 3 really outstanding players ended up coming to Auburn, and that never happened before since the black player become a factor. And well, they didn't become; they'd already been that, but they had not been able to get black players from state of Alabama. Alabama got most of them, or they went out of state. Well, we got in right off. We got Chuck Person, which you know that name.
Absolutely.
Charles Barkley came right after him. And the guy that was as good as both of them was one of the guys that flamed out. His name is Jeff Moore. I hate to bring it up because what I say is not positive. He couldn't stay off the bottle. He couldn't stay off of conditioning and all of that. And he was as good. In fact, record books at Auburn, he had gone about 5, 6 straight games and hold 27 points a game. Jeez. Well, I got all 3 of those guys and put them together and started them as freshmen, and they went on to become all really, really good players. Then I got the leading scorer in the state of Georgia and the second best player. So we got it all started with Georgia and Alabama players, but Barkley is the one that really kind of took us over the top of the building, so to speak, and to get Charles, they think, well, man, old Sonny recruited Charles. Charles was not heavily recruited. Seriously? Because he was short and he was very, very heavy, and academically he didn't really get after it, even though he's one of the smartest players I've ever will have, I'd say. And he just in one game, it's funny how your career can go from not being known to everybody knowing you. There was a great player in the state of Alabama named Bobby Lee Hurt. He made it to the NBA, but I cannot tell you who he went. But Alabama got him. Well, in a game between the two, Charles just wiped him out, like 27 points, 21 rebounds, and like 11 block shots.
Jeez.
It was like an incredible figure. And I couldn't believe it. And I saw the game where, and he jumped up and got a rebound, fellas, and you'll hear how the stories grow into more than they are a lot of times. He jumps up and gets a rebound and throws it to midcourt on the way down. Now, this is a high school gym, but I'd never seen anybody do that. And I said to him, I was with the guy that basically recruited him, an assistant named Herbert Green. I said, Herbert, we got to have this kid. He said, yeah. But after that pass to midcourt that he just made, it's going to become really hard, I'll tell you that. And it did. Late in his career, you know, everybody wanted him. Everybody's in the SEC in that state of Alabama. But he put Auburn's on, even though Chuck Person probably gets as much credit, he put Auburn basketball on the map for us. We went farther, but only because he left and went to the pros, or he would have been in all of those. He was special now, I'm telling you. I tell you, fellas, and I assume both of you players, I know that actually. I would think that not many people in their whole coaching career or playing career gets to play with what is people refer to today as a superstar. I'd never had one. I'd never coached one. And that set both of us on a ride that was good for both our careers.
I like that.
It's better than good. It's great for us, actually.
Absolutely.
And it's all because of him. We have a statue out in front of him of the arena at Auburn, and when they had the induction for the ceremony, for putting the statue up, it was the day of a football game. It was outside, right in front of the arena. I don't know how many thousands were there, but they were everywhere. So I got up and said all the great things about Charles, and it was his turn. He got up and he said, "If I had had an O.J. jury, I'd have killed Sonny Smith 30 years ago." I expected him to say all these great things. He said, "If I had an O.J. jury, I'd have killed Sonny 30 years ago," because I'd been so hard on him. And I was one of those old school kind of guys. I coached everybody the same and him a little harder because he was better. And I found out later on, and to watch the great coaches of today, I found out that ain't the way you do it. There's a certain way. You tell me how you guys think about it. There's a certain way to coach the superstar that's a little bit different than coaching other people.
No, man, you're absolutely right. You know,
would you agree with that?
Yeah, without a doubt. I was going to say from a personal experience, obviously I was teammates with Antonio Brown with the Steelers, and you could definitely see the differences. But when you have a player that can produce on that type of level, you definitely coach them differently. I mean, in terms of understanding what it is going to take to push them to be their best self.
Sure. I totally agree with that. I almost ran Charles off because I was too hard on him. And he turned me around instead of me turning him around.
What happened?
He taught me how to coach better players. Because be honest with you, I hadn't had that many. Prior to the black player becoming such a factor in the game of basketball all over the world, I had not had superstars. I didn't know how you coach those people, and I watched Pat Dye coach Bo Jackson. I watched and heard, to be honest about this, how he coached him different than he did all these other players. And I learned some from that. And Charles, I don't know who Charles looks at as his pro guy, but when he went pro, I hope I'm not saying something I shouldn't. I called Moses Malone, who I'd known from coaching in Virginia. And I tell him, if you get after Charles, get him to lose just a little weight, you're going to have somebody special. And I think right now, if Charles wrote a book, if you talk to him and said, who had the most influence on you over your life, Moses Malone would be right up at the top of that. Yeah, I'm sure you probably had heard that before.
I did hear in a prior interview he was talking about Moses Malone and Dr. J.
Boy, Moses Malone was something.
Yeah.
He never saw a rebound that he didn't want. All he had to do was put it up there, and he'd go get it. And he ended up being a great scorer, too. Billy Cunningham called me, who was going to be his coach. And he said, Coach, he said, well, give me some advice about coaching Charles. Well, I was thinking to myself, the one thing that's going to make him greater than he already is he's got to lose weight. Well, I said, I haven't been able to get weight off of him, Billy. Just to be honest with you. Billy said, well, I'll tell you one thing, Sonny. I'll get the weight off of him. You can count on that. And I said, Billy, I'm going to call you 1 year from today, and I want you to tell me how much weight you got off Charles. I saw him. It wasn't even a year, fellas. It wasn't even a year. I saw him he said, I haven't got him to lose a pound. I can do nothing with him. I said, how is he as a player? Best I've ever seen. He couldn't get him to lose weight either. But what Charles did do is he trimmed up. That weight, it became muscle instead of fat. And that made a big difference in the pros. Moses Malone had to give him a lot of credit for that.
All right. And now we're going to come back to Charles because, we're not done with him just yet. But I wanted to get back with you about when you were coaching at Auburn, man, when you took your teams to the Sweet 16 and then you had another appearance in the Elite 8. Just talk a little bit about advancing in March Madness, man, what it's like, because obviously as fans, we watch it and we see the excitement around it. But we it's different as a coach, I feel like.
Well, I thought that the SEC is one of the best leagues in the country, from top to bottom. And the reason for that is we were getting players in school back in those days with 700 on the college boards and a 2.0 average. So, and not every league in the country was doing that. We started getting some of those players, and all of a sudden it just blossomed into a league that was good. So everybody was recruiting on your potential to go to the NBA, which had not been a case in the past. It had been some of a case. Well, we tried to get players that wanted to go to the pros and that were willing to play together with people that would get to the pros. And we felt like we had to do the recruiting from inside out, which meant we start in the state of Alabama and go around from Georgia to Florida and places like this that surrounded that and the recruiting area, and we became really successful at that. And that's how we got that team together to go to all those NCAA. I'll give you a good example of how luck plays a part in that. I needed a point guard really bad. Coach Pat had taken a football job at Auburn, same time that I came in here. Well, I needed a point. There was the best point guard possibility in the state of Georgia was from Pat Dye's high school. And because of Pat Dye, I ended up getting the leading scorer in the state of Georgia. So, when you start building a team, if you build to your system, you've got to get the kind of players that fit it. And we ended up doing that, and that's how we got the ingredients to go to the Final 8. We should have been in the Final 4, but we had Louisville beat, and one of my guys took a bad shot. One of the great players that took a bad shot. He wasn't supposed to shoot. He was supposed to pass it to Chuck Person. But, hey, he thought he's better than Chuck Person, so I guess he should have shot it. No! I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, and that's how we kind of got it going. And we knew that you're only going to get to the NCAA out of the SEC if you won the championship or if you won the SEC tournament. So there wasn't that many people going, because if I say basketball in the SEC, first name that comes to most people's mind is Kentucky.
Right.
Yep.
Well, they're going to go. So the rest of us tried to fight for that second spot, win the SEC tournament. So Charles gave us that opportunity.
Yeah, you went like 5 years in a row. Like that was like an unprecedented thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it went 5 years in a row, and should have gone to 6, but I left and went. I had a good enough team returning. I just recruited Matt Geiger. I don't know if y'all ever heard that name before, but he played in the NBA for a number of years, a 7-footer for the 76ers and a number of teams. I just recruited him, and I got thinking I was better than everybody. I got me an agent. And a job opened up, and they wanted me to come. Well, I wasn't going to go. I was going to stay at Auburn. Well, we go to this interview, and this guy that was my agent said, "You stay out here and let me talk to him first." I said, "Okay," because I'm not going to go anyhow. I was thinking in my mind. He went into that place, and he come out, and he grabbed my hand. He said, "Congratulations, Coach. You're the new coach at VCU."
Wow.
I said, "Man, what?" He said, "Yeah, he had robbed those people. I mean, he had robbed them." And so I had to take it. And I left a really good team at Auburn, which was a better program at the time. And you see what VCU became after a few years. They were building a new arena at that time. I never got to coach in it because I went there with 5 years of coaching to retire, and I did.
Wow. So what's one key philosophy or one key takeaway you always wanted your students to leave college with?
Kids to leave college with?
Yeah, like your players. Like what was something that you always wanted instilled with them whenever they left? What was like a key philosophy that you wanted them to learn?
Leave college with more than athletic ability. Leave with an academic background standard. Leave with something to fall back to. If playing is the number one objective in your life, make academics in case you don't get it. Make academics in all phases. Work at it and enjoy it as well as work at it. A lot of people go to college and think it's going to be easy. They go at it easy and they don't academic part of it. But I wanted them to leave there with the possibilities of getting a job if they didn't make it as an athlete. And more athletes. More students make it as workers more so than they do as athletes coming out of it. I didn't phrase that very good, but y'all straighten it out when they get him on.
No, you're absolutely right, man. You're absolutely right. A lot of college athletes do not make it to the professional level. So, yeah.
No, and even when you do make it to the professional level, though, there's no guarantees how long you're going to be in these certain leagues. So it's always good to be well-rounded and try to figure out like what you can do outside of being just an athlete, because a lot of times you can just label yourself and put yourself in a hole for whenever you do leave that respective sport. So no, I think that's great advice.
Oh, that's very well put. I was talking to Jerry West, ended up being a friend because he come work in my camp and I worked in his for years. He kept telling me all the time when I left Cabin Creek, I didn't have academics on my mind. He said a player on his team named Willie Akers. He said, Willie told me, he said, "Jerry, you're the best player in whatever league they were playing in back in West Virginia at the time." He said, "Jerry, you're going to be the best in the country, but you better get you an education." And of course he did. And the story's already been told as far as Jerry West is concerned. But I think coaches will not do it today because it takes the standards of getting into a university today is a little bit, maybe a lot more than it used to be. And so, for instance, you could get into a university back in the day with a 2.0 academic average and 700 on a college board. Well, those players today cannot get in. They got to play. They got to play in a junior college, or they got to play in some other situation other than that. So it's tougher out there now, and players have got to have that education. And I think they're working at it harder too.
Yeah, I think they are as well, man. I think that now it's a lot more awareness around the educational element of it, which is huge going forward. So,
oh, sure.
Yeah, so now talking back about Charles Barkley, the NBA Hall of Famer. I mean, what were some of the challenges that you faced coaching him on the day-to-day basis while he was at Auburn?
I would think the number one thing was getting him in condition, because he thought he could do all those things without being in condition. It was not a factor to him at all, and he couldn't understand why his coaches thought that. He knew he was the best player on the team, and he thought he could do that at any size. Well, and the old school approach is years ago was to coach them, everybody kind of the same. You know, be tough on them. Don't coach them individually. Well, he was one of those guys that needed to be coached individually. And like, for instance, I've told him many times, I said, Charles, instead of me zeroing in on you, if I had turned my head, we'd both been better. But I wouldn't. I'd run him, try to make him throw up, you know, that type of thing to lose weight. And it wasn't like a discipline thing. To this day, he didn't think he needed to. I mean, he might, to this day he might, but back in those days, he did not think that was a factor. And as I look back on it, I spent too much time on that. We taught him a lot of things, and he taught us a lot of things. But I spent too much time on emphasis of conditioning and losing weight. And I would grant you today, if you talk to people from years ago, they'd say Sonny didn't work him hard. He couldn't get the weight off of him. But that's the farthest thing from the truth. I worked him too hard. And but now is the day. You guys know more about that, because I've been out of coaching for many years. You coach players are different. You coach them individually on their needs and fitting them into how they're going to make your system better and them better. And that wasn't the way we did it back in the day. That old school approach. And the old school approach is not as good as what they do today. I don't know if you all would agree with that or not.
You know, I never want to take shots at the older approach, because I feel like you got to pay respect and pay homage, because without the old school approach, it won't be a new school approach. So I feel like all of that helped out to get us where we are today, because I did like the new school where everything is individualized and stuff like that. But ultimately, we can't get there without you guys. So like I said, definitely appreciate that. So I'm going to leave that at that. That's the best politically correct answer I got for you.
That's well said. That's well said.
Now, when you were, I was going to say, so when you were coaching Charles, when did you know he was going to be an NBA talent? And at any time while he was at Auburn, did you think, man, this guy can be a Hall of Famer?
I would watch him do this, and then I started believing it. We would play a great team in the SEC, and he totally would destroy their best player. He would destroy him. And I knew right then, I've got something special here. And I was talking to Dean Smith one time, and some people have said things like Dean Smith and Sonny Smith are the only two coaches, living or dead, that could hold Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley to 17 points a game. But we both did. If you look at it, that's what they averaged. Well, but I knew how he would. Sam Bowie, for instance. Sam Bowie was a great player, and he would just destroy Sam. And Sam was Kenny Walker. A great player.
You're dropping some names. You will
jump out of the building.
Yes.
Kenny said one time I was the only coach that recruited him and didn't get him and bought the uniforms for the high school team. I don't know if you caught that or not, but it wasn't true. But I told Kenny one time, I said, Kenny, how could you go to Kentucky? I bought the uniforms that you played in high school. He was a great player. But Charles, the better the player, the better he would play. We lost the NCAA game to Richmond, the first time Auburn had ever been. Charles didn't think Richmond could play. They had a guy named Johnny Newman, who was a good player, played in the NBA for a number of years, but he didn't respect those people. Well, he looks up there at the half, and we're down about 18 or 19 points. I don't know the exact number. He comes to the huddle, coming out of the timeout, says, get me the ball. Well, we get him the ball for that half. He destroys Richmond, and we lose it on the last second shot. But we were better than Richmond. But we didn't respect Richmond as a way that we need to with Charles. But if their center is named Fly, and he's about that same size, and see, Charles didn't respect him. Well, in the second half, he respected him. It was incredible. But we lost, and that really hurt Charles because we lost in the finals of the SEC tournament, and we lost our first round game in the NCAA for the first time ever to Richmond, and that's kind of haunted all of us a little bit over the years. Kenny Walker beat us on the last second shot.
That was a 5-12 matchup as well.
Yes, it was. We lost to the Final Four team, I think, 4 of those 5 years.
Now, it seems like, looking from afar, you and Charles have a good relationship to this day. What do you attribute that to? I know you were talking about button heads here and there whenever he was in college, but can you speak on that relationship that you have with Barkley right now? Or through the years at least?
I think he saw what we were trying to do by being involved in television, radio, and observing the TV show that he has with Kenny and Shaq, seeing the way that coaches coach today, and I think he realized that at that time we were trying to do the right thing to get where we wanted to go, and I think he realized that. It took him later in life to do that. But we have a great relationship. My wife and my daughter probably have more to do with him coming to Auburn than anybody except when he came on a visit to Auburn. He spent most of his time at our home with Jan. He wanted to know my family, and he and my daughter Sherry. They're both still very close friends. And he liked that family thing, and it was and I think that helped our relationship. But he's one of the smartest people that I've been around, and he can make himself sound incredibly intelligent, and he also can do it the other way if he wants to be funny, and he can really be funny. He can really be funny.
I've always found the stuff that he's got to say interesting. He always brings something to the table and has some good perspective, in my opinion.
I agree with that. He does bring something on every subject.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just, he just said that. Well, he didn't say that. It seemed to me like it's a well thought out thing. Where it is or not, that's the way it seems to me.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about it a couple of times throughout this interview with Barkley being opinionated and how sometimes you guys would bump heads. How were you able to maneuver through those situations as a coach and authoritative figure, but keep you and him focused on the same goal of being successful?
We had a lot of meetings, and the best meeting we had was, he'd just get fired up in practice, and he'd beat everybody to death. One day we were having a practice, and he had this little old guy that was starting for us, and I had to have him. And we was running a defensive drill, and Charles was trying to kill him, I thought. I said, Charles, if you hit him one more time, I'm going to hit you. Well, I'm praying that the guy he doesn't get a chance to hit him. Next time, he floored him again. I ran at him. I hit him in the chest with a fist, and he looked at me, and he just backed off a couple steps, and he said, Coach, don't hit me anymore. And I didn't. And we both remember that as a time back in the day that it sounds a little more difficult than it was. But he in a timeout, you might think he wasn't listening, but he'd know exactly what you're going to do coming out of the timeout. It was the thing that Barkley helped Barkley a lot the coaches that he played for figuring these things out and using them to their advantage, the team's advantage. I can't go on and tell you the coaches that he liked the best, but but he learned from every one of them.
Now, this is, I guess, going off of Barkley here. What is something, looking back on your life, going back to maybe when you were in your 20s or 30s? The reason I ask is because me and Moats are both in our 20s and 30s. What is something you felt like you got right in your 20s and 30s, and what's something you felt like you got wrong looking back?
I think the one thing more than anything else was I learned as I went along that you don't treat everybody the same. You don't work everybody the same. You don't jump everybody the same. You don't praise everybody the same. You work out what makes things go between you and that individual. And you work those things out first, and then you try to work them into a team factor. And when you do that, you're going to be successful. The biggest problem that if I had it, you've heard that old story, if I had it to do over. If I had it to do over, I would like to have been able to coach a team that had depth. Because you can coach everybody different when you got depth. If you got a team that's super and you don't have a bench, you got to protect both of those things so much that sometimes you shortchange both of them. And it really comes down to getting players that fit your philosophy, and if they don't fit, either you adjust to them instead of making them adjust to you. Does that make any sense? That's I was one of those old my way or the highway type guys, but my highway was a rock road sometime, And I would say that knowing those things now, it helped me a lot. Coaching made me think of those things more.
Is there anything you got right? Because I know you're kind of looking back and saying, if I would have done this or I would have done that differently, but is there anything, and not just even basketball, just maybe in life, maybe something where you were at a crossroads, you made a decision, just maybe some type of philosophy that you felt like, this really helped me throughout life?
I think that the one thing I got wrong was I wasn't patient enough. Like I said, I'm going to go build this program into a consistent, steady win. I think I was always looking for the next best thing or the next challenge. And you can say, I wanted to accept that challenge. I think sometimes that's the wrong thing to accept. Accept what you got and make it be a big thing. And then your challenge will be that all the time. But coaching taught me a lot about life. Thing about coaching that's so tough is if you're a family man, you got to make a commitment to the amount of hours that you're going to be away coaching athletes, as opposed to for family time. And you got to make family time be a big, big factor. I used to say this, and I don't know it's totally accurate, but I average over 200 nights a year on the road. And if you don't take care of your home, if you don't take care of your family, your whatever the challenge is, and what goals you're trying to achieve, you're not going to make it. It's not just coaching them. It's not just winning with them. I give you something. I've never tell one story real quick.
Okay.
I had a guy who wasn't playing a lick, but his sister was in a car wreck, and we were on the road like a place like LSU, and they called and said, if you can get him home right now, or he will never see his sister again. I put him on a school plane, flew him home, broke every NCAA rule you ever had. And I said, I'm going to make sure that this kid makes it home. So I thought, I look back on life and I say, well, that's one of the best decisions I made because he got home. Does that kind of thing make any sense? I would accept a challenge even though it might be wrong.
No, man.
No, you did the right thing. That's just the right thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, speaking on your coaching history, right? When you're thinking about everything that you were able to accomplish, all these various moments in your coaching history, what is the one moment that sticks out as the absolute best moment for you?
The year we won the SEC tournament, Auburn had never done it before, and we'd been there a couple of times to finals a couple of times right before, and we ended up not winning. We finally beat Alabama. I give you a good example. I don't know how this inside-out thing works. I never thought when I was at Auburn that I could ever get it done if I didn't win from the inside out. Beat Alabama, beat Alabama, and then don't make Kentucky your biggest rival. You know, that type of thing. Go inside out, and I worked it that way in recruiting, and it worked better that way for me. I kind of got lost there. When you're 83, you get lost a lot of times.
No, this has been awesome. We've been really enjoying it.
Absolutely. Well, and the last question I had too, before we let you go, because I know, like I said, man, at 83, you're doing a lot, man. You're doing a thing. You're enjoying life, which you should be doing anyways. So obviously,
well, I certainly have. I tell you what, enjoying life has meant to me is spending more time with your family and also staying close to the things that got you there. Mm-hmm. Like I still do the radio games for Auburn and basketball. Somebody said, well, why do you do that? I do it so I tell everybody that I do it so I can get a front row seat. But I really do it so I'll stay close to the game, you know, that type of thing. And if you can have achieved something pretty good and you can stay close to the thing and you love the thing that you did, you know, I've had guys coach 25, 30 years tell me they hated it. But, you know, they say, well, I couldn't do anything else. Well, one thing you can't, I'll say this, if you can coach, you can do a lot of things. Because it's working with the people that you have to work with in coaching. It is more than X's and O's, man. It's about life.
Absolutely. So speaking of the work that you're currently doing at Auburn as the color commentary guy for men's basketball, with the potential of this collegiate season happening with no fans in the stands, what do you how much of an impact do you think that's going to have on the games at that level in the NCAA?
This coming season you're talking about, I assume.
Yes, correct.
Oh, it's going to heal a lot of wounds for a lot of people. It's never going to have the impact that it would have if we hadn't been confronted with this virus. It's going to be. But what my biggest concern with what's happened here is that the athletic programs of basketball and football has carried the universities with the amount of money that they bring in from television. And all of that's going to be a lot less. Now, my concern is, will athletics be the same after this virus is over, or will we have to start that bill back to what it used to be, up to what it is now again, type of thing? And I am concerned about that because money is what keeps that old bus rolling, you know. And it used to be the bus, now it's a plane. Got to stay on that plane, don't ride that bus.
Man, you're absolutely right. That is a major concern when you think about the amount of money that is associated with that.
Oh, you can't make it without it. Well, some do with contributions from alums, but that's the thing that everybody's good at today. So it's not you need that winning. You need that schedule. Well, you can get killed over your schedule. And the thing that makes that interesting is you don't know who's going to be good 3 or 4 years down the road.
You're right.
They're going to be good, but you don't know how good.
You're definitely right. Hey, well, Sonny, man, we definitely appreciate you hopping on the podcast with us, man. This was a very, very fun conversation.
Yeah,
very entertaining, man. So with that, go ahead.
Well, I tell you what, just having me on, man, I've enjoyed this very much because your questions took care of everything that you basically have done, and I hope I answered them right. If I remember them, I answered them right.
Yeah.
But memory ain't what it used to be. Who are these people? Don't start that, Sonny. I've had a great time. I hope you guys have.
We did, absolutely,
man. And we wish you nothing but the best going forward as well, man. So thanks again for hopping on with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.